I hope there are people who've seen some Pixar movies there. So it's a fascinating. I think that's what the magic of this company, magic of their brands is. It draws a smile to everybody's face. This book really goes into detailing of it. It's like almost like a guidebook on how Pixar goes about their work. By probably by the horse's mouth, because Ed himself has been in most of these discussions. The three guys that I put up the pictures of, the center one is obviously the most famous one, Mr. Jobs, John Lasseter on the right hand side, and Ed Catmul, the author of the book here. That is what I've seen very often, which is organization with a lot of creative people. You have people in ad agencies or in production houses or in broadcast channels, but there are individual creative people who are putting together a great piece of work. What sets Pixar apart is the right hand side of the slide, which is how do you scale up creativity to create a creative organization. This is the vacuum that this book highlights, and this is the vacuum which Pixar has sort of taken over in US, and that's why it is such a fascinating book and a fascinating company to follow. And this is a company that has not only received commercial success, they've not had a flop for last 14 years. All movies are between close to $1 billion in box office collection, and has also have got critical acclaim with almost 24 Oscar awards. And the other piece that this book really delves about, and something that I very strongly believe, that culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There is no way you can go about PowerPoints and Excel sheets and get something out in a company. It is the culture that you're able to create which sort of unfolds itself into the success. And this is what this book talks about. It talks about in detail about how Pixar went about scaling up without losing the culture. And I'll show you some of the pictures. These are pictures about their meetings, about how they go about, and a little dichotomy that comes wherever in the book, and a very definitive view that comes in from the Pixar, from Ed, the author of the book. The first one being people or ideas. I've been in a lot of meetings, lot of discussions all through my career, where it always seems like there is this eureka moment when a great idea comes, and that is what it is all about. And he really dismisses that. He said, he says, and when you look back, you really think it makes a lot of sense. He said, you give a mediocre idea to a great team, they will either fix it to make it great, or discard it and find a new idea. But if you give a great idea to a mediocre team, you are sure hell screwed. It will not go anywhere. So at any point in my working life, I've used it as a mantra that when you are getting in a situation where you're made to take a choice between these two, it is always people, because that's where the success or the culture piece comes around, or the ideas come around. This is the other very nuanced two set of words that you see here. And if I was to ask you, are you an honest person, the answer would be yes and no. But if I say, what do you call a person who's little less honest? It is still dishonest. But if you replace the word honesty with candor, you can be less candor. You can be less candid. You can be of a little less reserved nature. And that's what this little change, and this is the most celebrated virtue in the Pixar culture, what they call as their brain trust meetings. But what they really harp on is candor. If you have a situation in an organization where more is getting spoken in the hallways than in the meeting rooms, you know where the organization is heading. And the best of the guys, and that's, you will see a lot of YouTube, Google stuff on it, even in the book, on how the brain trust meetings of Pixar are legendary. These are meetings in which a director who has put together, let's say, 10 minutes of his Inside Out, the famous Pixar movie, or Finding Nemo, puts a little screening for a bunch of other people, and then they go out for a lunch and then come together in a meeting. And that 2 hours is essentially the movie being thrashed out. So when you have people like Brad Bird, people like Andrew Stanton, people like Ed himself, they ensured that these people work together in an environment of trust where candor becomes so. And the idea of isolating the idea, a discussion on an idea from a discussion about yourself. So when somebody is commenting on a particular movie, he's not commenting on you, but he's commenting on the piece of work that you have. And that trust being set up lends to the magic that they do. So the book is laden with examples on what were the initial thoughts on putting together Finding Nemo, how the narrative should have gone, and how the brain trust meetings really helped and gave objective view to the director to rework it, and that's why you have a masterpiece. The same with Inside Out. And very small observation here: when they started this brain trust meetings, Ed realized that the meeting room had a long rectangular chair, not rectangular table, which unknowingly gave a sense of power on who's going to sit where. And wherever he would sit, and the set of people who would sit closer to him automatically got a visual sense of hierarchy. And he noticed it. And the next thing he got done is square tables. Tables so that a lot of people feel a part of the conversation and not get sort of voiced out. So these are the things that they sort of celebrate and talk a lot about in the book. And that's why what I meant by honesty and candor is being candid is something that the company goes about underlining in every possible meeting. I'm telling you from my experience, this is something that is missing in most of my, as in I'm honest to admit it, missing in most of the office meetings, most of the organizations that I meet. The culture is not empowering enough for people to speak out, and you end up finding different mechanisms to deal with it. One important piece on how this brain trust meetings have worked for them. He said, how is it different from two feedback mechanisms on any other feedback mechanism? The first is the guys who are part of the brain trust meetings are storytellers themselves. So there is a director with a bunch of other directors, where there is a basic level of trust that the other guy has also gone through a pain of putting together a story or putting together a piece of content. So that basic level of trust comes in because you are dealing with people who are empathetic about what you're going through. And the second piece is there is no authority. There is no decision that gets taken in a brain trust meeting. So you spend 3 hours, they threadbare the movie, analyze it, lots of heated debates happen, but the final authority still rises with the director whether to take it or not take it. And just because of these two tenets, those meetings are a cornerstone of how Pixar sort of operates. And all the 20 movies that they put together are essentially product of the same process. One other interesting piece, what very beautifully mentions in the book, is that there is a hidden contract between the consumer and the creator on authenticity. So when they went about making Finding Nemo, the animators did scuba diving courses for 15 days. When they were doing Ratatouille, the animators went all the way to Paris to meet the chefs, to spend times in the sewers, to recreate that journey. And he said, while in fun and the storytelling, but there is a hidden contract. There is a respect that comes through from the consumer who's seen that world, and when he sees that content being recreated, that there is authenticity. The final part is this, the hungry beast and the ugly baby. And this is always happens with creative organization. There is a hungry beast that gets created around the content, which is top line, which is revenue. I need more movies like that. Can you do 3 more seasons of a show? Which is essentially a lot of management, profit and loss, shareholder talk. And then there is the ugly baby. Ugly baby essentially coined that term for the new idea. And he said none of these ideas look pretty when they start. From the book, and he says, don't wait for things to be perfect before you share them with others. Show early, show often. It'll be pretty when we get there, but it won't be pretty along the way. And he underlines on how the ugly baby needs to be protected. And the job of the management is to protect that ugly baby. The caterpillar doesn't look as pretty as a butterfly, but the hungry beast will always, they've sold one butterfly and they'll keep asking for more butterflies. And he says that is the single biggest reason why after Lion King in 94, the next big Disney animation hit happened in 2010, because the company went to, this is the demand, this is what the hungry beast is asking for, create more of this stuff, and none of that ever cut ice. While in Pixar, he says, irrespective, while efficiency will say that our man-hours will protect, if we lock the story now, then our man-hours will be protected, we can turn around a movie in 18 months. He said, but every movie is a fresh start. So I can't lock the story. You lock something, you go to a brain trust meeting, you bounce it off, you might have to go back and rewrite the story. It might be inefficient, but that's how an ugly baby process goes about, and that's how you create a big movie. That's what this book is about. For me, this book is more like a guidebook, sort of a big statement back on creativity done at a scale of Pixar, but that with so much culture and a people-driven way. Because finally, happy content can only get created by happy people. There is no way you can create Finding Nemo or a Wall-E or Ratatouille by a bunch of frustrated creative people. It is not possible, and that's why it's inherent for creative organizations to have happy people, because happy people end up creating happy content. Thank you so much.